Welcome to the Headset Podcast, a podcast focused on gravel cycling. Here, we'll interview gravel cyclists from various backgrounds, including industry professionals and regular Joes. We'll review industry equipment and real-world application and provide race, ride, and event recaps from around the world. There's so much to discover in gravel cycling, so grab your drops and let's get graveling. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Headset Podcast. Thanks for joining us this week. Our guest is Kelsey. Kelsey is a bike fitter over at Conte's bike shop and a cyclist who fell in love with cycling as a means of transportation and its utility. From there, that love grew into mountain biking, and now he's looking towards joining the roadie crews. But we know better here on the Headset Podcast. We're going to change his mind and sway his intentions, get him out on the gravel eventually. We won't let you go to the roadie side. It's okay. Kelsey has a passion, though, for helping other cyclists get the most out of being on the bike. No matter what you like to do, if you want power, if you want comfort, Kelsey can help you get there as he works the science of the bike fit. Thanks so much for being here, Kelsey. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, man. Good to talk to you.
Yeah. So recently I met Kelsey through a friend, hooked me up with a bike fit, and we're still working out a few things, saddle and bars, kind of working those things out, but we're very, very close to having my fit dialed in, and I'm grateful. I feel so much better on the bike, more comfort, more power. My FTP went up by, I don't know how much this is related. Maybe we'll get into this later, but my FTP went up this month 13 points. Like, that's pretty impressive. So, hey, who knows? It might be related to that fit.
Right. All right. Good to hear.
Yeah. So we polled the audience. We polled some Facebook users from some of the cycling groups that I'm a part of. We got some questions from the community, but before we get into that, I really wanted to give you a chance to tell us your story, how you got into cycling, and what in the world made you want to become a bike fitter.
And corporate fitness program, and I happened to live within cycling distance, but I had a health scare. I forever, and still do have issues with sleep. And when I was in college, I suffered a bout of seizures, and I, went to the hospital, was seen for that. And they're like, okay, no problem. We can get this under control, and I haven't had one since, thank goodness. But they're like, hey, now that it's been brought to our attention, you can't drive, and you can't drive for, I think it was 6 months. Oh, wow. So well, I need to get to work and school somehow. What am I going to do? So picked up a touring bike and started riding. And oh my goodness, I'm just so thankful cycling was there for me when I needed it. But that's where it started.
Wow. So big health scare. You couldn't drive anymore. And so you just found a bike. You said it was a touring bike. Do you remember what bike it was?
Yeah, Fuji Touring. It was rim brakes. And I was so new at the time. I walked into a bike shop and was like, hey, like, set me up. I've, rode BMX bikes as a kid, and this is what I'm going to be doing. And thanks to that bike shop, I wish I could plug the name, but it was in Orlando at the time. I'm sure that doesn't help. There's probably a bunch there, but they got me on the right bike. I wasn't fitted, they probably offered it to me, but I was a poor college student. So at the time I didn't understand how beneficial that could have been, but got on the right bike and started commuting and was just like, whoa, this is great. I am showing up to work, feeling fantastic. Getting home, feeling fantastic. And I'm sure a lot of that had to do with the ride, but yeah, that's ultimately where it started.
Wow. Yeah. Getting to work, feeling good, probably a little sweaty if you were in Florida, but from commuting, you got into mountain biking, right? Yeah. Like, was that just like a natural evolution for you, or just one day you was like, oh, I'm done commuting, I'm going to go mountain bike now?
Well, that 6 months ran up and I could, get back into the driver's seat of my vehicle. But I kept the bike and I kept commuting. It was just split now, and in the summers it made sense. It was like, okay, sometimes it rains and it's super hot, so might as well drive on some of those days. But when I could bank on the weather being nice, I would definitely commute. But at the time, I mean, I've always had an issue with chronic and acute injuries. Even in high school, my dream was to become a professional athlete. I have a competitive spirit. And at that time, I really wanted to channel it into competitive sports, specifically track and field. But injury just always hampered and my ability to compete. So when I got into college, I was like, okay, well, I want to continue training like an athlete, but if you can't do, you end up coaching. So I got into training and with a focus on athletics, but I was still training like an athlete, and being young and just kind of subjecting my body to the rigors of that training, and an already injured body at that. I never just gave myself the chance to heal. Plus, with my issues with sleep, I was never truly recovering. So both knees are arthritic. I ruptured my Achilles, complete rupture, in December of 2016. Yeah. And I, before that, had just always been so proud of my explosiveness and, my ability to do athletic things. But cycling, when I started commuting, I was like, oh, I can really put some power down without aggravating my knees. This is pretty awesome. But my father's an awesome dude, longtime cyclist, mountain biker, roadie, everything in between. Now he rides gravel. He did the Unbound 100, but he was there at the same time as you, but they got stuck in the mud. And anyways, he was like, hey, dude, you should come out and mountain bike with me. This is totally up your alley. It's what you like to do. And I was like, mountain biking? And I lived in Florida at the time. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, what are you talking about? In Florida? Believe it or not, big scene, like some truly passionate people down there who mountain bike. So if anybody's interested, I can definitely recommend a few spots. But he got me out there. And at first I was a total mess. And eventually it grew on me. And I was like, wow, this is excellent. My knees aren't swelling. My Achilles isn't giving me any issues. And I started jumping and riding more technical terrain, and was like, whoa, this is awesome. And had a bunch of friends who were getting into it as well. So we kind of grew together. But really it started at, hey, this is a good way to ride pretty aggressively while, not aggravating my existing injuries anymore, and in promoting healing. I was able to get exercise in without hurting myself further, and that has helped me recover from injuries. I can't say that I don't fall, because I do fall quite a bit, but nothing.
We all fall down every now and then. It's okay. You can say that.
Right now, you saw the finger at the
oh fit. Yeah.
That's not bike related, but yeah, I'm a glutton for punishment.
It's okay. We'll take you as you are. It's fine. The gravel community will welcome you. And well, it sounds like you've had a really awesome journey. So let's jump into the questions. A lot of these are from our community, from our fans. Others are just common questions you probably get all the time. So please forgive me if I ask a rookie question, but this is for the benefit of the community. How important is a proper bike fit, and what are the potential benefits of getting a professional fit?
Oh man, I would say it's incredibly important. It depends on the discipline. For a rider that's going to be doing one ride a week, maybe, if the sun's out and perfect weather conditions, then maybe a static fit is appropriate, especially if you're on a budget. But if you're riding like and riding almost every day, then that amount of volume, and even less volume than that, would definitely justify a professional bike fit. The benefits, and I can speak from the heart on this one, avoiding injury. You don't want to put yourself in a position that over, so many miles is going to exploit some, none of us are totally symmetrical. None of us move perfectly. So if you're in a bad position on your bike and you are riding with add volume, you're going to exploit those issues, and it may eventually result in an injury and put you out of the saddle. You don't want that. So I think anybody could benefit from a fit, and injury prevention, as well as recovery. If you're cycling because you're looking to recover from injuries, that's awesome too. But then also efficiency. You don't want to be wasting energy to inefficient movement. Get fit. You'll notice it pretty quickly. That first ride, you're probably going to feel a little sore because you're tapping into musculature and that you haven't before. And then after that, it's you're going to just feel better overall and be happy that you went with that professional fit route.
Awesome. You mentioned a couple terms there that maybe we can define for the folks at home. Static fit. I think you said dynamic fit, professional fit. Can you just briefly explain what are the differences, types of fits, and maybe you could give an example of who might be good for each type?
Gotcha. So I'll try to summarize it as best as I know how, but a static fit, and you may have heard of this before, or you may yourself have done this before, but if you're purchasing a direct-to-consumer bike, they may tout that they can fit the bike for you before you even get it. And all they need to know is your inseam, and they might take a few other measurements as well. Then you get the bike, and it's just kind of like, okay, I hope it's right, but whereas a dynamic fit, we get you on the bike and we look at you because we want to see what's happening through the pedal stroke. We want to see what you look like in the saddle, what's going on in the cockpit. We want to see the whole picture. And that whole picture is then going to lead to more specific prescriptions, more specific adjustments to make you better. So the dynamic fit accounts for the individual differences of the rider, whereas the static fit kind of follows a preset formula that just kind of puts everyone, not everyone, but, a lot of people from, if you have a 30 inseam, 32 inseam, 34 inseam or lower, it kind of puts everybody in the same bucket.
Gotcha. So yeah, this is a great segue right into the next question. You're talking about inseam lengths and torso lengths and all. So what are some of those key elements and measurements that you would typically look for on a rider during a fitting session, and how do those kind of impact the rider's comfort, efficiency, and overall performance?
Gotcha. So the static fit, I don't want to poo-poo on the static fit. It provides an excellent place to start. But from there, I would definitely recommend, having a fitter do a dynamic fit. So some of the things that go into a dynamic fit are, we measure your feet. We want to know what's going on at the foot. Probably spoke to you during our fit. I was like, hey, we want to almost immobilize the foot. We want it to act as one lever, measuring the feet, ensuring that the shoes that you're in are the appropriate size and width, recommending insoles. If you're somebody whose arch changes from an unweighted neutral position to a loaded position, standing, or if you're up out of the saddle putting power down, if your arch is changing a lot, collapsing a lot with every stroke, then you might need a footbed. You might need arch support. It's not just for runners and walkers, or it's for cyclists too. I wouldn't put those insoles in your running shoes. It's not what they're meant for. They're a lot more stiff, a lot more rigid. Cleat placement, you want to make sure the cleats are installed properly with the correct fore and aft adjustments, the correct rotational adjustments, correct stance adjustments. Then once those things are done, start at the feet, work your way up. Once those things are adjusted appropriately, then you can look at what's going on at the knees. And it's truly is a holistic process, because you do one thing somewhere and adjust something elsewhere. If I mess at the feet, it might change something up in the cockpit that you would have never expected. But yeah, in the dynamic effect, we're looking at everything, and I used feet as an example, but we really are looking at everything. I'm looking at how you are in the saddle, and are you shifting? Are you sliding fore and aft? Is that saddle pitched correctly? Is the seat post at the correct height? Is the saddle contour correct? Do we need to change your saddle entirely?
You're riding, and every time you ride, you get neck pain or shoulder pain, or elbows get sore, your hands go numb. These are all common things that would say, hey, something's not quite right on the bike. I need to go get this looked at. Are those the kind of things you would look out for?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're riding and you feel like you got hit by a car after every ride, then yeah, that's a problem. But I mean, at the feet, if you're having hot spots, numbness, tingling, yeah, something's probably off with your shoes, your cleat positioning. Maybe we need to widen your stance, add some pedal spacers. If you're uncomfortable in the saddle, all the same things, numbness, tingling, pain, yeah, that needs to be addressed. It might be the wrong saddle. The saddle just might be at the wrong position. If up in the cockpit, your hands are in the wrong place, it's going to cause long-term discomfort. You may start out in the first couple of miles, feel fine, but this stuff compounds. If you're in the wrong position by even a couple of millimeters, it compounds over several miles to where, you're 20, 30 miles in, you're like, oh my goodness, I need to stop. I need to get out of the saddle. I need to take my gloves off, move my hands. I need to take my shoes off because I can't feel my feet. That's not good. That's not good at all. Or, oh, my neck hurts. My back hurts because of the position I'm in. Then that needs to be addressed. Absolutely. Again, we want to keep you riding. If you're experiencing any of that discomfort, I'm telling you now, that's not right. And it's maybe a result of, again, barring injury and, individual characteristics, bodily characteristics. It may be a result of a bad fit and, or no fit, and you need to get fit. So definitely address those things right away, because your body's speaking to you. It's telling you, hey, I'm uncomfortable and I need this fix because I want to keep moving, but I can't keep moving if I'm in pain.
Don't forget, folks, if you want to support the channel in other ways outside of YouTube, you can always join the Patreon. Patreon members get access to unedited podcast videos. So jump down to the link in the description, join the Patreon, and support the channel today. Now, back to the show.
I'm one of these people who's kind of in between sizes, right? Your common sizes in centimeters like 54, 56. I'm like a 55. So I'm in between sizes, right? I'm for your common bike sizes. And if so, what would your suggestion be? Should you size up or size down? And this question is from Andy.
Okay. Well, if this was a static fit questionnaire provided online, it would probably put you at, honestly, I don't know. It depends on the measurements that they ask from you and what you answer on the questionnaire, whether you're an aggressive rider, leisurely casual rider. And everyone is so unique that question, it's difficult to answer. And a good example is I work with a gentleman who's, I think he's 6'4", and I'm maybe 5'11" and a half, and when we stand next to each other, it's like, okay, this guy's obviously taller than me. But when we sit on the ground, our torsos are the same length. And it's like, whoa, okay, how can this exist? And this isn't uncommon. Nobody is totally symmetrical. Nobody has, like, one 6-foot person to the next 6-foot person, they're not going to have the same wingspan. They're not going to have the same inseam. And these things all need to be accounted for. So in a dynamic fitter, if we were doing a frame finder fit, we'd be like, okay, you know what, in this, you have, and I'm just speaking hypothetically, like, oh, you have longer legs, but a shorter torso, shorter arms, we might defer to the smaller size and just keep that saddle up, because the reach is important. And we can do things to the stem and the bars and up in the cockpit to make it more comfortable, but we might defer to that lower size. Whereas if you are the opposite, you have shorter legs, but a really long torso, but you're riding road and you're competitive, like, we're going to defer probably to that bigger size to accommodate that extra reach, that added torso length, make you more comfortable up in the cockpit. And we can always adjust the saddle accordingly. So if you're in between sizes still, I'm going to say, go get fit, find out what's appropriate for you, because one gravel bike to the next is not going to be the exact same. And what might feel right in a 56 may be better for you in a 54 from a different brand. So everyone is so different, and a static fit will tell you one thing, but a dynamic fit is going to give you a better answer to that question. For myself, I'm definitely a 56. Could I ride a 54 comfortably? Absolutely. But I'm going to be more upright, and I'm going to have to put some space, a longer stem in, and wider bars. And I'm going to have to set it up to account for the fact that I'm really a 56 riding a 54. Can it be done? Yes, absolutely. But go get fit. Go get fit is the answer. If we were to determine which brand gives you the best possible experience, we can match that, compare the brands, compare the bikes, and find out which one is more comfortable to you, because the differences between, from in the same discipline are probably going to be pretty minute. You go from a BMC to Cannondale to Specialized to a track bike, and they're all a gravel bike, or they're all an aero bike, or they're all, kind of an all-road endurance bike. Like, you can expect some similarities, definitely, but is it right for you? Are you going to be in the right position to where after 100 miles you're going to feel great, or that 100 miles on this particular bike with this particular geometry is going to exploit some sort of physical characteristic that you have that's just really not tuned to that geometry of the bike, and it's going to cause problems. It's going to injure you.
What are some key components? Jason wants to know that if you change, you should try to go in and get a refit done.
Well, the whole process of a dynamic fit is holistic. So, what happens in one area affects everywhere else. You go from a 172.5 to a 175 crank, it's going to affect your pedal stroke. We may need to make an adjustment somewhere to account for that change, because that's if you keep the saddle position in the same position with the increased crank size, for whatever reason, if that, this is just one example, but what if you don't have the mobility to get to the top of that pedal stroke now that the crank's longer, and now you're experiencing hip impingement, your hips rolling with at the top of every stroke. So you're losing power, you're losing efficiency, and you're subjecting your hip and leg to potential injury, because your body isn't designed to move that way. So that's just one example, but you make an adjustment at the cockpit. Let's say you go with wider bars. Now all of a sudden you're in a more forward position. Do you have the mobility? Do you have the flexibility to do that? Okay, if you do, awesome. But even then, it's going to affect your pedal stroke. It's going to affect your comfortability. So, we may need to make an adjustment elsewhere to ensure that we're not subjecting your body to any undue stresses or potential injury. You change your saddle, like you just got the new saddle in, which is awesome. But that saddle is a different saddle, different contour, different shape, profile, everything. We want to make sure it's on the rails in the right spot. We want to make sure it's pitched correctly, adjusted fore and aft properly. We may need to change seat post height to ensure that your stroke looks good. And you look good up in the cockpit. We're not putting any undue stress on your hands. So yeah, I would definitely, if you're changing components, it affects everything everywhere else down the chain.
When it comes to components, let's say I go in and I get a fit, like I came in, saw you, we noticed there were a few things that I could do. Saddle was one. The bars are a little wide on me. Should I change everything at once and then go get refit, or should I just do one thing at a time and be very strategic about what changes we make? Because like you said, you change one thing, it's going to impact something else. So if we make this one change, and some people might have to for budgetary reasons, right? Like, well, I can only afford to get a saddle right now, or I can only afford to get bars right now, or cleats, or whatever the case may be. Does it matter? Or should you just, holistically all at once do everything?
Well, a good example of do it all at once would be getting a brand spanking new bike. That's but then of course, if you have the means to change everything out all at once, you want to get the newest top of the line gear, and you got the means to do it. Yeah, do it. Like, throw it all down, but go get fit, because it's, like I said, one change somewhere is going to affect everywhere else down the line. So you can bank on the fact that changing multiple things at once is going to affect the whole system exponentially, versus making a small change somewhere, taking the time to understand how that change affects the fit, and then making another change. So yeah, a big change is going to result in doing everything at once, changing out all the components at once. Yeah, it's going to result in big changes, and some of which you may not be able to react to, or you may not be able to interpret if you went and rode right now. Like, if you got fit, but then 6 months down the line you get all new things, you change it out, you think you're matching the original fit as close as possible, but then you go and ride and you're just like, oh my God, this is so different, this feels horrible. And like, oh, what is it? Is it my shoes, my brand new shoes that I got? And maybe they're not the appropriate width. Is it, do I need to, I messed my cleat installation up. Like, where were they before? I think this was close. Like, yeah, you're really gonna mess things up if you go and change everything at once. Whereas if you do one thing at a time, you can change it, you can go ride it, just like you did with the saddle. You put the saddle on, you rode it, and you said you felt different. Like, okay, this is good. What kind of different? Like, where are you feeling discomfort? Are you where are the what do we need to address? Whereas if you went and changed your bars and your saddle and your shoes and your cleats and your pedals, and if you did that all at once, it'd be like, whoa, okay, well, we need to start from square one. We need to work our way up the ladder here.
One more question here from Alan. And Alan wants to know, we mentioned bars a little bit ago. When it comes to bars, how wide is too wide? Can I be rocking some 52 wide bars out there, or do I need to stick to 40s, and be super aero? And like, there's a lot in that, right? Stability, comfort, cost, but when it comes to fit, what's the general rule of thumb on bars, and how wide would be too wide outside that rule of thumb?
Oh man. With regards to rule of thumb, like, the first thing I look at, it depends on the discipline too, but if I have a road cyclist up in the trainer, and I'm looking at them from the front, I'm looking for the position of the hoods relative to the outer profile of their shoulders. But that changes from discipline to discipline. If you're a mountain biker, you're going to be wide, and you want that width to provide stability on technical terrain, and at speed. If you are looking to be super, super aero, you're going to be pushing the limits with regards to width and trying to get as narrow as possible. So there are performance aspects to the decision to be super wide or super narrow, but then comfort as well. So if your cockpit is not comfortable, and someone like yourself who does hundreds of miles, what's happening up in the cockpit? Are you comfortable? Are you able to maintain a certain position for hours on end, hundreds of miles, without serious discomfort? And if that's the case, awesome. Especially for endurance riding, like, yeah, you need to be comfortable. If you have to consistently adjust your hands, get up out of the cockpit altogether and sit upright because you're just so uncomfortable in whatever position you're in, then yeah, something needs to change. If you're going for strictly performance oriented bar width, depending on the discipline that you're in, then there are rules of thumb, like, gravel bars, they have the flare at the drops, and that's for added stability. It's easier to find when you drop your hands from the hoods down into those drops. And that's awesome. You need that width, you need that extra width. And but for a roadie, like, no, you don't want that extra width. You want to be as tight as possible, but also, and this kind of ties into the rider being aware of their own physical limitations. You need to be able to interpret what it is that your body is telling you. So if your neck and your back and your arms are killing you, your wrists, your hands, you get numbness in your hands, there's probably something going on up at the cockpit. And width is just one factor of many, but a good cockpit fit can often be the result of a good fit down at the feet, working up to the saddle. So once you do get to making adjustments in the cockpit, whether it's bar width or changing the stem angle or stem length even, then we're really starting to fine tune things. Like that's getting pretty deep into it. So a precision fit, something that's more in depth than your typical essential fit, getting sensors, a retool fit, and putting the sensors on the body to measure these angles in real time down to the 10th, 100th of a degree, and then making minor adjustments to see like the improvement in real time can be super beneficial. So if we're making adjustments to the width of the bars, it's going to be helpful to have that done in the precision fit environment to see what's going on everywhere else. Again, this is a holistic process.
Wow. That's a ton of information. I hope that everyone gets something out of this. I think the big takeaway is get a fit. So the big question that everyone's going to have on their mind now after listening to all this is static fit, essential fit, precision fit. How much does this end up costing? I mean, I know that each one is a different cost. Some of them are included with bike purchases of certain amounts by certain bike dealers. Not every bike shop that sells you a bike is going to offer you a fit. I know for personal experience the difference. So not asking you for a quote, and nobody's going to hold you to, well, Kelsey said it was only going to be this much, but in general, about how much do these things run?
You can expect a introductory fit to be a couple $100, and expect to be in there for an hour and a half. Now, if you purchase a new bike, you might get a credit toward that. So it's going to vary from shop to shop and from fitter to fitter. Now, the precision fit process, if you've already undergone the initial introductory fit, then you can expect to be in that fit studio for several hours, 3 hours. And now we're getting into the $300-400 range. Another service would be a frame finder fit. So I have access to a super highly adjustable bike where I can match the geometry of any bike that's out there. Then that's going to run, probably about $500. But what's good about that service is some of that 500 might go towards the purchase of a new bike if you're getting it from the same shop that's providing the fit. Definitely. Cool. And then there are other services as well. Like we offer a foot and lower leg support, where we essentially do all the foot measurements that we did in the essential fit, so that we can get you in the right pair of shoes and get the cleat adjustment dialed in. But we're not necessarily putting you on a bike. Anything that we can do to help the rider stay in the saddle and do it comfortably, we're here to help.
That's awesome. So many options, so many ways to do it. It's just great. I wish we had probably another hour. We could probably keep talking about this and just get really deep dive in. Just amazing. Even having been in your studio and heard a lot of this already, hearing it again or in a different format is just so reinforcing to me about how important getting a proper fit is. No matter if you're on a mountain bike, a gravel bike, a road bike, a hybrid commuter bike, an e-bike, all of these bikes, you need to be fit, to get the most out of it.
And yeah, I don't want to limit it to just competitive athletes or super endurance riders. If you're riding a fitness hybrid and you're riding it regularly and you are experiencing discomfort, it doesn't. I have done a fit on a $150 bike before, and this rider, who's just a recreational rider looking to get outside more, was like, oh my God, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Kelsey, you are a wealth of knowledge. I just am so grateful that you're able to be here on the show with us and that you're local to me and such a great resource right up the road, just a few miles away, at Conte's Bike Shop. We'll post a link down in the description down below for everybody to click on. You can go sign up, get your bike fit scheduled with Kelsey over at Conte's. Take your own bike. You don't have to buy a new bike. You can bring your existing bike in. Like Kelsey said, it doesn't matter if it's a $150 bike or a $15,000 bike. He's happy to help you get fit, have more fun on the bike, and be comfortable doing it. Kelsey, thanks so much. Again, I appreciate you being on the show. Any parting words of wisdom other than get fit for those out there in the cycling world?
Oh man, just, personally, cycling has always been there for me when I needed it, whether I was dealing with a health scare, injuries, or just need an outlet for exercise and personal enjoyment. So to be able to talk about it and share my experience with it has been awesome. As far as parting words or anything else goes for that matter, just thank you for having me. It's been great to talk, and go get fit. Yeah, that's essentially what it all boils down to, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Well, there you go, folks. Go get fit.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Headset Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please hit the like and subscribe button down below to get notified every time we post new content here on The Crossing. Make sure you tune in next week when we speak with Rob Evans, race director of Stuckey's Gravel Roll, including the races Valley of the Giants, the Bird Dog 100, and the Pecan Shaker. Until next time, folks, have fun, stay safe, and we'll see you on the gravel.